Mhm. Hey there, everyone. It's Cassandra from CassandraTyndall.com, and I'm here today with another video with another fabulous astrologer, Gary P. Caton, who contributed to Australia's Wellbeing Astrology Guide 2023. So if you're not familiar with this magazine, if you've seen previous videos I've done with other astrologers, it's an Australian publication filled with fantastic astrologers who've written articles for us, of course, Gary being one, Wade Caves, Kelly Surtees, Hilary Spiteri, Alex Trenoeth, and plenty more. And of course, there are in-depth, comprehensive annual horoscopes written by yours truly. So I'll pop all links below how you can get your copy. If you are not in Australia, you can order a digital one. And of course, if you're here on this continent, you can get it through Coles, Woolies, or your local newsagents. So that's enough babble from me. Let's pass it over to Gary, who wrote a wonderful article about the elemental year of Mercury. So if you'd like to share a little bit about that, your journey in astrology and what you do, that'd be fabulous.
Awesome. Thank you, Cass. I appreciate it. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so the Mercury Elemental Year, the first time I got exposed to the idea of the Mercury Elemental Year was from Erin Sullivan, her sort of classic work on retrogrades from the 90s, and that's when I became an astrologer, right? Early 90s, that's when I was coming up. And so that was a seminal work for me. Like that was always like a keystone in my library. But she's talking about, the book is called Retrograde Planets, so she's talking about all the planets. So the section on Mercury is just like about 5 pages, right? But she talks about how, hey, look, the Mercury retrogrades happen in sequence through the four elements. Like each year, you'll have 1 year where the fire element is accentuated, and then it goes fire, water, air, earth, which is actually reverse zodiacal order, but
Yeah.
right. So Mercury retrograde goes through the elements and reverse order. How cool is that,
How Mercury.
right? you know, and so being the like just investigative. I guess maybe it's my eighth house moon or my Scorpio like 10th house, or I don't know, various things, Pluto, whatever you want to call it. I'm always interested in like, okay, what's the next level? Digging down deeper and like, okay, what's going on behind that? And so I started plotting out, noticing like, okay, because sometimes you'll have like 4 retrogrades in a particular element, and other times you'll have 6 retrogrades in a particular element. So I was like, okay, what's going on here? So I actually spent an entire winter like creating an ephemeris of this phenomenon, just like Virgo moon. My Virgo moon was like, just give me all the details, all right? And in the process, because I'm really hardcore observational astrologer too.
Yep.
I was going out and I was taking photographs of Mercury with my camera, and I was noticing like, okay, um, this month Mercury is visible, and next month Mercury is going to be too close to the sun. So basically, the way as a photographer, it alternates months, right? Like this month it'll be visible, next month it'll be with the sun, the next month it'll be visible in the evening sky. Just like, and I was looking at a copy of the Emerald Tablet that I had, and it was talking about, most people think that the Emerald Tablet says as above, so below. It doesn't say that. What it says is that which is above corresponds to that which is below, and that which is below corresponds to that which is above. So there's a correspondence. There's above and below are corresponding. They're like as in a series of letters. There's a correspondence happening here. And I was like, that's thought, could that be literal? Could like the above and the below have some relationship? In other words, like when I'm out here seeing Mercury above the horizon, visible with my camera, does that have some relationship to the times when it's below the horizon and invisible? I was like, well, there's only one way to find out. And so I started digging around, and what I found is that, like, yeah, actually, it does. So there's And that's why the book is called Triptycha, because it happens in a triptych. There are 3 alignments. There's a maximum elongation as evening star, which is visible in the west at dusk. And then there's an interior conjunction or inferior conjunction with the sun that's invisible below the horizon. Then there's a maximum elongation as morning star in the east. And all 3 events happen in the same degrees. Every single time. The first time I saw it, I was like, okay, like that's probably a coincidence, right? And then I checked it again. No, there it is again. There it is again. There it is again. And I actually did 125 years of these things, and I went through and like every single thing, every single time, it's in the same degrees. Like literally, that which is above corresponds to that which is below, and that which is below corresponds to that which is above. It's like, and then there's another passage in the Emerald Tablet where it says, the sun is its father, the moon is its mother, the wind carries it in its belly, and its nurse is the earth. So it's going through the 4 elements like sun, fire, moon, water, air, earth, right? And that's the order that it goes through. The retrogrades go through the elements: fire, water, air, earth. And I was like, holy crap, like this. So yeah, so I was just blown away by that. And then I started looking at it and I'm like, okay, this, basically think about it this way too. Everybody always says like the outer planets are the things that you share. Your outer planet placements are the things you share with like your generation, right? So everybody that I went to school with, high school, like we were all born under the Uranus Pluto conjunctions in Virgo, right? So that's one thing that we share. But you know what else we share? My particular class, my graduating class, right? We were all born in a year where Mercury spent more time in the air signs than all the other signs combined, because 1968 was a Mercury air year. And guess what? The Wright brothers' first flight, and the Apollo moon landing happened in years where Mercury spent more time in the air signs than all the other signs combined. So it's like, I was like, wow, like this is really a phenomenon. Like there's a lot more to this than just, and so I really started looking at it. And then when I was really convinced, I was watching this thing, and then in 2010, when it switched from the earth signs to the fire signs, it happened like right on the solstice. So, the solstice is like, 0 Capricorn. And it was actually, there was an alignment between the sun and Mercury at 29 Sagittarius, like last degree of a fire sign. What happened was this dude, street vendor, just a regular common person, he gets upset about the cops, taking away his stuff in his cart, and he goes to see the I forget what they call them there in Tunisia. I mean, it's like the mayor or the local, authority figure, the solar figure, whatever. And evidently the guy blew him off, because what he does, he comes back and he sets himself on fire. There you go, like Mercury fire year, and boom, the entire region is now set on fire, and we have this phenomenon called the Arab Spring, where they literally had like these days of rage, where people were just like protesting and everything. And that's when I was like, okay, like I'm not making this up. This is real, and this is powerful stuff. And then, last year I wrote a blog for the Mountain Astrologer where, it's like, that's pretty obvious stuff, like the Wright brothers and the moon landing happening in air years. Something that's a little less obvious, but still really powerful, like Bitcoin began in an air year, right? So it takes 6 or 7 years for Mercury to come back around to the same element, where it's 7 years later. Ethereum, the number 2 cryptocurrency, happened in an air year. And then 6 or 7 years later, what are we having now? the merge where Ethereum goes to like proof of stake, consensus and everything. So it's like every 7 years we have this big development in cryptocurrency that happens when Mercury is, in the air years.
Mm.
So it's really, I think it's really an utilized and undervalued phenomenon that not just can it affect your personal horoscope, um, because it, like, everybody always complains kind of retroactively about Mercury retrograde. They go, oh, Mercury retrograde and this happened and then thanks a lot, and it's like, well, hey man, like, you're an astrologer, you didn't see that coming. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, it's a phenomenon in and of itself right now, isn't it?
you know what I'm saying? But it's like, hey, every year that 3 houses in your chart are going to be a little bit wonky.
Mm.
So, like, what do you want to do about that? Like,
Yeah.
and so, there's that level. And so, in my book, I talk about, like, I have a whole list of exercises that people can do to try to tune in and do something positive with it, to kind of take charge of the phenomenon rather than just passively being a victim. I'm like, that's the last thing I want to do. I want to be out there, like, living my life. I'm not going to take, you know, and the thing is, when you throw these so-called made-up shadow zones in there, it's literally like half your life you could spend waiting around doing nothing because of the shadow and all this. I'm like, no
Yeah,
freaking way. I
exactly.
spend half my life in fear, cowering, waiting for the right time. No, there's
Yeah.
got to be a better way.
Yeah, you can't just be moving through life anticipating impending doom, right? It's sort of like you need to really think, well, I'm still going to do what I'm going to do anyway. Am I going to pack the sunscreen or the umbrella? You know what I mean? It's just having that
Exactly.
awareness and
Yes.
having some maybe strategy or tactical planning as you move forward. And,
So yeah.
that's one thing I really do appreciate about your work overall. Two things is the bringing back observational astrology to getting our heads out of our PCs and apps and things and into the sky. Definitely
Yes.
recommend doing that. And of course, shining light on Mercury, which for especially coming through astrology in the 90s, I started in the early 2000s. It was just sort of a bit of a glossed over planet, and
Oh my God. Yeah.
so glossed
Completely.
over.
Yeah.
And to sort of hear, I mean, I remember seeing some attending some workshops and lectures with Erin Sullivan back in the day.
Nice.
And it's so interesting to sort of think, she was really the inspiration for a lot of your Mercury studies.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I love Erin. I love her work. She's a great lady. She's been very
mm,
supportive to me. And look, I mean, this whole idea of okay boomer and all that stuff, man, that is so far from my reality. Like, bless you. As far as I'm concerned,
thank you.
I'm only able to do this because I stand on the shoulders of giants, and she to
Mm,
me is one of the giants,
yeah,
that I
yeah,
truly revere.
yeah, that's
And
lovely.
I'm really appreciative of all the stuff that they did to bring astrology out of, and into to a place where I could take it and take the ball and run with it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but yeah, the air thing that's happening this year, it's not just a phenomenon that you can look at in your personal chart and go, okay, how do I want to deal with this in my life? But it's a collective phenomenon, right?
It totally is. And I mean, that's definitely emphasized this year with Mars retrograde in Gemini, what's happening, with information, the way we communicate, how is that being, controlled, influenced, or manipulated. So,
Oh
we
my
just know
goodness.
as a collective experience, it's going to be air, the internet. And that's
Yeah,
what you've done in your article is really bring you've really just highlighted some key points in history that really examine these elemental years. And
yeah,
obviously a recent one that many of us are going to connect with is the fact that in 2020, when most of us were in lockdown, it was a water year. So a lot of it was pulling our energy in. It was sort of emotional for many
right,
people, and
right.
more
Down
of a
water, the elemental
Down.
symbol for water is a downward pointing triangle. It's down and in, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, really basic stuff about the elements. I think elements are so foundational. You know, fire and air are up and out.
Yeah.
Right? Earth and water are down and in. And you know, earth people, I have found earth people are, you know, earth, I mean, if you've ever been to Washington, D.C. and been to like the Smithsonian museums there, like they have room after room after room, and it's all these rocks. Like if you're a rock hound, it's like the Shangri-La of like, there's like, how many different minerals are there in the earth? It's unbelievable how multifaceted it is, you know. And that's what I find about, but you have to dig down below the surface to appreciate that multifaceted nature.
Yeah.
And that's what I think earth people are often like, very much like, they seem like calm and cool and like kind of just, you know, vanilla on the surface or whatever. But as you get to know them, you realize, wow, this person has a lot of talents. They're multi-talented. They're able to multitask. And there's layers and depth to them, you know, like they're quiet, so you don't always notice it as much as you would from fire. Air is more boisterous, you know, you notice them quicker.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the earth people, even though they may be quieter, there's a lot of depth and there's a lot of multifaceted stuff there. And so that's the thing, as we're going into an earth year, one of the things that I talk about is like, don't take things at surface value. Be willing to, like, first of all, take your time, right? Because earth, of all the elements, earth changes the most slowly, you know. And be willing to dig down a little bit and look for that, like, what's going on under the surface, you know, because that's what's going to be there. That's where you're going to reap the rewards in an earth year, is by doing and being appreciative of the nature of the earth element. If you're doing, you know, if you're working in harmony with the earth element, then, you know, you're going to naturally be able to sync up with the current of what's going on, and you're going to find your way through these retrograde periods a lot easier than if you're just trying to go on like full fire mode, just like full speed ahead, like damn the torpedoes.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, you know, earth puts out fire, or fire scorches earth. You know, that may not work out so well.
Yeah. Yep. This is it. Yeah. You've sort of got to really, you know, work with the element involved, for sure. One of the ways I often describe, you know, the earth is sort of, you know, as your bottle of wine ages and you get closer to the sediment, that's where really the solidness and, well, you know, that real boldness, you know, in red wine in particular. So, you know, sort of the older, the deeper, the heavier, that's where that kind of, those minerals are extracted, so to speak. So
same way with beer, you know, at the end the yeast is like, that's the good stuff.
You'll have to educate me on the beer. I probably have one about every 3 years, and I satisfied that you know, every third year thing just recently, and it was good. So I'll revisit beer in another 3 years. But yeah, I mean, look, I can't really thank you enough for what you have given to the treatments that you have given to Mercury in particular. And considering that, you know, obviously I have a bit of bias being a Mercury ruled person, and also, you know, this work is, and, you know, Mercury also, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second there. Mercury also being sort of the patron saint, if you like, of astrology. I mean, you know, the fact that it's taken so long for it to really kind of hold its own in the current astrological literature. You know, I'm really grateful for that, because
right on.
Not only has Gary written a fabulous article for Wellbeing, but if you haven't come across this book already, as you can see, there's plenty of references that I've it's littered with posted notes, and I'll put a link where you can pick up a copy of Gary's book, which is published by Rubedo Press. Yeah, definitely a fantastic reference if, you know, you do want to discover more about Mercury, the elemental years, and, you know, how that's going to flavor your personal experience as well as the collective. So I love it. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Yeah,
So,
right on.
Gary, did you want to share with people watching if you've got any courses, classes, like what you're doing currently that you might like to let people know
Right.
about?
I don't think I think all of my public engagements for this year are pretty much done. I'm going to be speaking, I think, for the Connecticut group early next year. Um, but what the main thing, like my main membership program that I have going on, constantly, is that people can join up. There's 3 different levels that people can join up, and I put out a magic report every month. It's like 40 pages usually.
Oh, wow.
And I go through like the whole philosophy of astrological magic, like really just like from the beginning, like, okay, like, look, you know, here's like how the energy flows down the Kabbalah, right? And here's how we like we want to like access that energy through the chain of correspondences. And then I go through like how we get the sigils for the planets and whatever. And then I go through like a bunch of examples of magical elections. So, and I have 6 different kinds. And so far as I know, I'm the only person that has this many different kinds. So I have like planetary magic, fixed stars, constellations, lunar mansions, house-based talismans. I'm missing something. Decans and
Oh, yeah.
decans. There's something for everybody, and even if you aren't, you know, like quite ready to begin talisman making or anything right at the moment, like these can be used for like I have several Mercury elections right in the next report because Mercury is going to be turning direct in Virgo pretty soon, right? So these can be used for just like making, sending out your newsletter, right? They like, doing mercurial, actions. So you don't necessarily have to be ready for talisman making, but if you're interested in going that direction, I put out that every month. There's like 40 pages of stuff in there, and then I have, I've been doing this for a full Saturn cycle now. I
Mm,
mean, I can hardly believe it myself.
yeah. The time does
But
fly.
oh my God,
And you
it's
also have
like,
a podcast, Gary, the Hermetic Astrology
yeah, the
podcast. Still
Hermetic
doing that?
Astrology
Yep.
podcast, and I posted a conversation with really, well-known occultist John Michael Greer talking about his latest book, which is called The Twilight of Pluto. So that was the most recent episode. I mean, I guess I'm an influencer now because these publishers are sending me books and they're saying, "Hey, why don't you check out this book and maybe you can have, So after I did his book, like all of a sudden people are sending me books and stuff, and so I have a couple more really interesting books. There's another book specifically on like Hermeticism that I'm going to be doing, and there's another one on I think herbalism that I'm going to be doing. So that seems to be a thing that I'm going to be doing now. But I also do like, I'll do episodes on current events and whatnot as well. But yeah, I've been giving lectures and classes and whatever for like, I don't know, more than a dozen years now as a full-time astrologer. And so all of that stuff is stored in archives. So I have like, I don't know how many gigabytes worth of like videos and reports and classes and all of that stuff. So people can join at another level and they get access to the archives.
Oh,
So they
wow.
can so there's all of that stuff that I've done throughout my whole career. Um, Articles for the Mountain Astrologer in there, all that stuff. And then the final level is if you join at the top level, the gold level, you can get access to me, my time at a discounted rate. Right now it's $1.50 a minute, which is really cheap, you know. Um, and you'll get like first consideration. So when I'm scheduling, if you're a member, I'm going to schedule you first before I schedule, Joe or Jane from the street or whatever. So there's that membership program. And then I do. So all of my classes really at this point in time are really just geared for the membership because I'm not
Yeah.
doing a lot of, I mean, I've, I haven't really got time to do much
Yeah.
more than that, and most
Yeah.
of my consulting that I'm doing is for my membership. At some point, I might even have to just like, turn off the public option because like, I need to get some writing done. I need to get book 2 in the
Yeah,
Triptycha.
you do. Yes. I mean, I know this has been a really popular book. I definitely promote it within my own circles. It's been really
It's
well
amazing.
received.
Like it's been 5
People
years
are,
now,
oh, wow.
and I'm still getting like, people are discovering it and going, wow, and stuff. And I feel just so blessed. And, back to what you were saying about Mercury, getting his due. Um, in the Persian tradition, um, Mercury is Hermes is a prophet, like on the nature of like Jesus or Muhammad or basically he's a antediluvian prophet, like before the flood, right? Prophet, and so that is kind of like the perspective that the book is coming from and that my work is coming from, is like that Mercury is a major dude. He's not this afterthought of like,
Which he has been
like,
for too long,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels really great that people are getting it, and that balance that you were talking about, where for a while it was like just glossed over or whatever. It feels like that's being corrected and people are getting it and people are looking, and that I'm just so thankful that like that's all I could have possibly wanted or asked for.
It's great. And I
Yeah.
also love that we're having this discussion as Mercury Cazimi is starting to happen.
Yes. And near zero Libra, in fact,
Yeah. Yeah.
on the world
So
axis. So that's pretty powerful stuff.
yeah, and we have chatted for a long time, not only just in this recorded portion, but as part of the pre-chat. So again, just going to shout this out one more time. I'll put a link in the show notes below, links to Gary's membership if you'd like to join that. It sounds like
dreamastrologer.com.
dreamastrologer.com. So we'll pop a link down there. It sounds like you can have your mercurial smorgasbord of lovely options there and plenty of it. So thank you, Gary, for coming and sharing your wisdom and knowledge and all your work. And it's so great to connect with you. And also be sure to pop those links where you can get access to the magazine as well. So until next time, thanks everyone. And thanks so much, Gary, for joining us.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you.